Thank you for joining me this time on my Praxis journey. We're currently taking a look at two articles, one by Tim Urban and the other one by Mark Andreessen. And both of them are focusing on career insight, how you approach your career, how you think about it, and how you consider which path to take. I've got 4 questions here to answer. 4? Mind frame? There it is. I've got 4 questions to answer about these two articles. Just as a sort of framing device, I'm going to stick to these 4 as 4 different sections, and we'll get my answers to those just kind of straightforwardly. So the first question is, what from the video what insight specifically is something I really agreed with? I've written these down so I can just easily reference them. And one of the insights that I really loved from Tim Urban's article was you don't have to worry about dot number 4 when you're working on dot number 1. Because, in his words exactly, you're literally not prepared to work on that yet. By the time you get to dot number 4, you're going to be a completely different person with new skills and a new mindset and a whole host of new things that you don't have now while you're working on dot number 1. And if you try to plan out everything through your entire future, you are going to burn yourself out because it's impossible. Sort of as a related thing to that, I also wrote down that as far as ultimate goals are concerned, it is better to seek contentment than consistent total happiness. Because when you're content, it doesn't matter whether you're happy. It only matters that you know your own value and your own worth. So contentment is better than happiness, because happiness eventually fades. And it'll go through valleys and it'll go through peaks, or over peaks. It's really that simple. Happiness is fleeting and changeable. Contentment is a mindset. The second question was, what was something that I disagreed with, or that I didn't really feel applied to me? And I don't really think there was anything in either of these two articles. They both cover such fantastic stuff. Tim Urban's article specifically, he talks about your own octopus that lives inside your brain. And the octopus has different tentacles. And there's the social tentacle and the moral tentacle and all of this stuff. And that's just really broadly explained psychology. I don't think I can escape from having that be applicable to me. As far as Andreessen's article, the ideas that he talks about are fantastic. I can't say there's anything in them that I disagree with. I really loved his insight on not getting into your own head too much about, what is this choice I make? What is the effect going to be on me 40 years from now? It's like you can't think that far ahead. It ties back into my answer from the first question. There's no way to plan that far ahead. There's no way you're going to. If you try to think that through, you're going to be paralyzed by fear and then non-decision making. You're going to be indecisive, and that's not what you want to be. Now, the third question was, in Tim Urban's article, there was a yearning hierarchy that he set up. And essentially you had the bottom shelf, the middle shelf, the top shelf, and the non-negotiable bowl, which sits on top of this bookshelf. The non-negotiable bowl should be limited to one thing, just the absolute goal of your existence. And the top shelf was, 2 or 3 other things that you wanted to pursue and get better at, fears, motivations that you want. The middle shelf were like other things that are important, but they're not priorities. And then the bottom shelf were things that were desires or fears, but they weren't things that you need to focus on right now. In other words, you're setting aside those fears and those priorities because there's other things that take their place, and they help you in your ultimate goal and your top shelf goals. So again, using my list as a reference here, I wrote down one of my top shelf goals is to have better human interactivity and networking skills. Because networking is one of those things that no matter what you do, it's going to be helpful. If you can't network, you're essentially dead in the water. And in any professional role, that's something that is going to be massively useful. And so that's why I put it up towards the top of my top shelf. It's so important to have that as a skill. And then finally, the fourth question, which is, what is something from your bottom shelf, a fear or motivation that you've set aside in favor of serving these other more top priorities? And for me, one of the things I've put on the bottom shelf is a sense of security. There's a very real sense in which not taking a risk, not going out on a limb, not doing Praxis, not stretching myself for these different skills, for writing things weekly, for not looking for really challenging work, just coasting is something that you can still be really secure in. You know where your check's coming from. You know that you have a set list of expectations and things that you need to do for the week. But security can also be really boring, and it doesn't pay off quite as well. If you never take risks, there's never a reward associated with the risk either. So those are my insights that I've taken away from this project. And if you're interested in doing something similar, I'd love to see what you guys come up with. If you want to comment this in the comments below on my website, I'll be posting this video into my blog on my website. Just you don't need to get super personal with it, but just a couple of comments. Again, the questions are, if I can remember them. I'll also link to these articles. These are really valuable, and I've already thought of about 4 or 5 different people who I know would love this content and would really get some good growth out of it. But these 2 articles, one by Tim Urban and the other one by Mark Andreessen. The first question is, what's an insight from one of these articles that really, really you just agree with? You're like, yes, that makes so much sense. The second one is, what's something you disagree with that you don't think applies to you? And there may be something you think doesn't apply to you. That's fine. That's a good thing to talk about. Third, what's something that you've put on your top shelf? What's one of your top priorities? That's something you need to think about. You need to be thinking about what your priorities are. And finally, what's something on your bottom shelf? What's a fear or a desire that you've set aside in service of a greater goal? So, I think that's really all I have to say about that. If you have any questions, feel free to leave me a comment down below. I'm happy to look through and answer any questions or give any insights that I might have, hear any insights that you have as well. And otherwise, this is Brian Broom signing off for this week's Praxis assignment.